I'm Maggie Moser.
Beth Gulley, and we were part of a project called Kansas Letters to a Young Poet that was organized by the Kansas Poet Laureate Kevin Rabas. And we are going to read a little bit from our selections in the book now.
January 29th, 2019. Beth, I'm so sorry for my delay in responding. I've been really sick lately and barely getting up the strength to get the must-dos done on my list. I loved your poems. I think email is perfect and would love to meet for coffee sometime as well. I live in Overland Park, Kansas, so we're not very far from one another, I imagine. I love finding out you're a teacher and a traveler, as I am as well. I teach special education and I love traveling to new places. I've lived for a time in Hawaii, Austria, New Mexico, Kansas, and Ohio, but I've seen a great deal of Europe and North America, primarily Canada, Mexico, every state except Alaska. Are you still teaching at JCC? Do you enjoy teaching? Do you teach writing, or is it a hobby? Swapping journals for a weekend, what a great idea. I imagine you and your friend both grew from that experience. What happened to the Facebook group, 356 poems in 365 days? Does it still exist? Have you done so since 2015? I'm impressed with the dedication that takes. I'm lucky if I get to sit down and write once a week, although I'm trying to make time for it. A poem and a poet that inspires me. There are so many. I'll start with Robert Frost, because my father went to a class he taught and spoke about him often. I really started memorizing with Emily Dickinson, Hope is a Thing with Feathers, and Because I Could Not Stop for Death. They were the first poems I kept in memory, but Frost was the third. One poem of his that I memorized, Choose Something Like a Star, starts out, O star, the fairest one in sight, we grant your loftiness the right. I've often looked up at the stars and repeated this poem as a reminder to keep my mind on what matters. So I chose another night poem by him to share, Acquainted with the Night. I'm excited to see who you pick, as I love gaining new favorites. I heard you read your poem, Two Benadryls and a Claritin, at a poetry reading once. I loved it, and it got me thinking about all the pain in this life and about the ways we try not to be swallowed whole by it. I felt connected after hearing you read. I even went home that night and wrote this. I didn't know that was you until you shared the poem again. We have met then. I wasn't sure if we had until you said that. I came up afterwards and thanked you for reading. Here's the poem I went home and wrote. A pill for that. They spill out like candy, perfectly pasteled arrays of what life's become. Peony pinks, pasty whites, blanched blues, Prozac, Percocet, prednisone, bring you up, hold you steady, fight the demons within you. Not even their creators will ensure just what they'll do. Calm, alert, ease the pain, keep you here another day. All the while you wonder, is this a game you chose to play? Is numbed reality much better? Could you deal with pauseless pain? Is there any hope in stopping? Is there a drug just to contain? Are barbiturates so bittersweet, a vitamin thrown in or two? Not because you see a benefit, but because they're good for you. Excedrin, diazepam, Depakote may cease a racing mind, but the labels never tell you you can't leave the pain behind. You'll need amphetamines, methylphenidate to bring you back alert, keep you surface functioning till your next bottled dessert. The high may keep you up at night, so you'll need another sweet to take you back to nothingness. Zoned out ambience a treat. When did life become so busy that to force a mind to cease, we need our own dispensers, sugar-coated peace. Treating side effects from side effects, we all know is a slippery slope, but we're living out illusions. No one taught us how to cope. Oxy, opie, onward, nowhere safe, come up or down. Tranquilized subsisting is the only way we found. To make this world endurable, live somewhat awake, we push aside our drowning, lifeboat need, anoint our ache. No one swims towards sweet addiction, thinking, here is where I'll fit. Whether standing on this voyage, high, numbed out, or totally lit, home on our shelves sit capped reminders, this flesh doesn't fit. I hope you have a great week, and I look forward to connecting with you soon. God bless, Maggie Moser.
And this was my response to Maggie. from February 12, 2019. And by the way, Maggie and I had not met prior to this project, but we did meet without realizing we met during this project. And then we met, I think, twice intentionally during this project. And hopefully we'll make time when we get to meet again soon. So it was really fun to get to know Maggie through this project. Hi, Maggie. It's my turn to be sorry for the delayed response. The weather has been very disruptive in my life recently. Thank you for sending your poem. I especially like this part. Like candy, perfectly pasteled arrays of what life's become. I'm still writing for 365 Poems in 365 Days Facebook group. Here's a link to it. It's a closed group, but if you ask, James Binger will add you if you're interested. While the initial discipline of writing a poem a day has worn off, I think I ended up with 170 poems for 2018. That is more than I would have written if I were not part of the group. I have about one poem for every other day this year, too. The group is definitely worth joining. I still work at JCCC, where I teach developmental writing, composition, and literature. JCCC is a wonderful place to work, and I enjoy teaching there very much. Since I work in Overland Park, meeting for coffee would probably be an option. This week is a bit crazy, but maybe sometime next week. It's amazing that your father took a class with Robert Frost. Thanks for sharing his poem here too. One of my favorite novels as a kid was The Outsiders, and of course it references Nothing Gold Can Stay. I also like Emily Dickinson. I'm Nobody is one of my favorite poems she wrote. Recently, I draw inspiration from Naomi Shihab Nye, Nikki Giovanni, and Ted Kooser. Here's a brief sampling of their work. December 12th by Ted Kooser and When I Nap by Nikki Giovanni are particularly interesting. I look forward to hearing from you again soon. Sincerely, Beth Gulley. And then we thought, go ahead,
I'd love for
Maggie.
you to read your poem to them that inspired my poem that you wrote, if you don't mind.
Yeah. This is called Two Benadryls and a Claritin. Two Benadryls and a Claritin, and I still can't breathe. I lay awake thinking about a story I heard of a woman being assaulted as a man's hand covered her mouth. She thought she would die, which reminds me of another story. Police hold a man down to the ground while he insists he can't breathe until he doesn't breathe anymore. Pretty soon this Benadryl is gonna kick in, but I'm probably not gonna be able to sleep.
I loved it the first time I heard it. I love hearing it again.
Thank you. I loved yours too. It was a great response. And I really enjoyed, one of the things that I thought was really cool in your letter was that you told me you memorized poems as a kid and you still memorize poems. I think that's really exciting. I wish that I would memorize more poems.
Well, one of the things I thought was really cool is your writing journal back and forth. So I started doing that a little more with a friend and trying to write a little more every day. I'm still not very good at that, but trying is a start.
Yeah, well, it's a difficult discipline, and I think it comes and goes in seasons. I was looking at the work of William Stafford recently, who is notorious for writing every day, and he apparently he wrote on paper and he had boxes in his office. Some were like poems that he kind of discarded, like they had different categories of like ones to keep working on and ones that he just wrote just because they were the poem of the day. I thought that would be fun to come upon.
That is cool. I like that idea. Also, after reading and writing with you, I started listening to Tracy K. Smith's podcast, and that's been really fun because she introduces a new writer, and I've learned a lot about poets that I never knew. I started memorizing new poems from people that I didn't even know were poets until now, so it's been really exciting.
Yeah. So I heard that you also got one of your poems that's in this book. You revised it and you got it published.
Yeah.
Would you read the revision for us?
Sure. The poem was #UsAll, but I changed the title to #SistersBeAblaze. U.S. citizen. I wept once, abandoned behind closed doors, longing to be known without the mask, a face that never resembled anything of me, lips the color of blood, waiting to be swallowed, eyes painted, lined with darkness, on my knees as if begging would stop his movements long enough to see me as more than a pleasure toy. He stood 20 stories strong within the Flatiron building, steel scraping sky, owning power in a building designed for men, the ironic iron icon. He said he took mere moments, fitting he had no sense of all that takes a lifetime to forget. Alone, I walked into a New York crowd, Fifth Avenue elite, cursing the coming rain in silk and linen frocks, fearing the demise of patent leather shoes, too busy to notice me, their eyes fixed on diamonds. They did not originate here. Deep source heat, constant pressure, vast volcanic eruptions, in a billion years before being treasured in all their exquisite shine. No one to see. There's something more beautiful than diamonds here. Algerian refugee. She wept once, abandoned under the blistering sun, sweat exuding down her spine, every piece of her needing conservation. She prayed not to vanish into the Sahara, the vast interior terrain, where women were expelled without children, food, water, despite 300,000 zetas rendered at the onset, and the surprise stop, out, pay, met at every crossing. No pickup or land cruiser willing to take her assigned lack of strength and her ability to push vehicles from dunes should the need arise. They know not women, nor their stamina, and yet they are power. They take, leaving nothing for her journey, no familiar landmarks, devoid of stars. She invokes the wind's rising sands to cease, and cold nights to seep into temperatures of day. There's no mercy when becoming lost means you die. Movement onward, all that's left propelling the beat of pulsing hearts. For every one who makes it, two never do. She looks to a country where she believes something beautiful could survive. United, we wept once, stood and tried to taste life in anything but handsful of dirt. We saw her, Lady Liberty, full rights and true liberty had yet to fuel her golden torch, yet the fire in us sees it ablaze. A different huddled mass beneath, yearning to breathe. We hold one another. Together the load, still not rightly balanced, lessens, causing sandstorms to cease, powerful hands to stop their taking. Every step, moving rubble, shifting this world's stance. We climb our office walls and desert dunes, dream, tell our stories, ignite our torch, knowing others will come, that there be more than mere mirage awaiting, sisters be ablaze.
Thank you. I think that's so beautiful. That's really powerful. I like that title change too. I think that was great.
Thanks.
So
I learned a lot
we were
writing. Go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead.
I learned a lot from our writing back and forth. We were talking about memorizing poetry, and I had never memorized one of my own. And I think when you memorize your own poems, you realize, okay, is this worth memorizing? Because if it's not, I should really revise it so that I really like it, so that I want to memorize it, as opposed to just keeping your poem. I hadn't really edited poems, I guess, when I first met you. And then I learned, oh, you have to go back and look at these and kind of see what you can do to make the words that you want come out on the page, as opposed to just putting words on the page. And I really appreciate that.
Yeah, I like what you just said too about liking your work enough to memorize it. One of my favorite writing scholars, Peter Elbow, has a real famous but old article called Ranking, Evaluating, and Liking, where he talks about how we as writers and how we as writing teachers should encourage our students to like their writing more. But that's what makes the writing worth revising, is that we've written something that we enjoy. And I love that you have found this way of liking your own writing, which is really important. Also one thing that I think helps me too, when I read my poems out loud to other people, then I hear if it feels fake or feels empty or I feel stupid saying it, and then I'm like, oh yeah, well that doesn't sound good there. It needs to be changed.
Yeah, I even think having other people read your poems out loud, your own poem out loud, helps too, because I noticed where people take breaks that I was like, oh, I didn't mean for that to be a pause, or I would have said that straight through, and that's helpful too, because I've never taken a writing class. I've worked in Turning Point and different things on writing groups, but actual formal like college writing classes I've never taken, and so I don't know the correct uses of a lot of punctuation, and so it's exciting to hear some, oh, there's a breath there. I didn't mean for there to be a breath there. That helps too.
So I think we're going to end with me reading the last letter in our set. But I would encourage, if you're out there watching Maggie and I have this conversation, that you get a hold of Kansas Letters to a Young Poet. It has wonderful writers from the state of Kansas, or who have originated in the state of Kansas, who are writing back and forth. And Maggie and I are just one set of authors. And there's lots of lovely conversations and pieces of advice and snippets of poems. So, Maggie, do you have anything else you want to say before we get to the end?
Just that the book is really helpful too, in that the people who were chosen, most of them came to him. He asked if anybody wanted to be a part of the project, but when he asked, a lot of us came up and talked to Kevin, and I think that the writers in the project are really all have very different voices, which is really nice to be able to read advice from all kinds of really good writers, and then all of us just getting started figuring everything out. It's a great book.
Yeah. All right, so to end, this is March 25, 2019. And actually, Maggie and I thought that we would keep writing, and then we had to end. So, so maybe it doesn't feel like it's a closing. But hi, Maggie. It's nice to hear from you. My trip to Pittsburgh was a whirlwind. It had some wonderful moments there, though. I got to hear Keith Lyman, the author of Heavy, read from his work. The Writers' Place has reopened in their new location, and here's a list of upcoming events at thewritersplace.org. I think the next reading at the KCK Public Library will be amazing. Eve Ott is one of my favorite poets. I would love to meet for coffee. This week, Thursday evening is the best time for me. Thank you for sending me your poem. I especially love the last line. You'll go put on that hat with elephant ears. The poem has a lovely rhythm. I hope you have a great week. Sincerely, Beth Gulley.